Let's speak to Sir Iain Duncan Smith, former leader of the Conservative Party, MP for Chingford and Woodford Green, and a veteran himself. Sir Iain, I'll ask you how you feel on a weekend like this, because I know you served in Northern Ireland, Rhodesia, you lost men, you lost friends. What are your reflections this weekend?
Well, this weekend is a peculiar weekend in a way, because although we have Remembrance Sunday regularly, it's very rarely, that the 11th falls on the same weekend, so on the Saturday. So we have had 2 days in which this is a special a couple of days. We've done remembrances up in Chingford, where I am at the moment, and more to come later on. I always end up thinking of those who served with me, but also those that didn't come back. My father was a fighter pilot during the last war, 5 gallantry medals. Used to talk endlessly about the people that never returned, young men, etc. And a particular friend I remember didn't return back from Ireland, was very badly treated, was bodies never been found. These sort of things go through your head as you go through these ceremonies, and that's what they're there for. They're there to give thanks to their sacrifice, and at the same time to be able to explain to your children and others why people fought to protect freedom, and that's really critical, I think.
Very critical. Now, I know you were very critical indeed of the pro-Palestinian marches taking place this weekend. From what you witnessed yesterday, do you think it was an error by the police to let them take place?
Well, I think the police will obviously have to stand by their decision and decide what they wanted. I particularly didn't want that march to take place then. It wasn't a case of saying no to marches. They have the freedom to march. I know that. And that's what many fought for, those freedoms. But I think over this peculiar and rather special weekend, I would rather have hoped that we'd postponed it. Why not on the Monday? Why not on the Tuesday? That was my concern. It wasn't a case of pointing fingers. It's just that I thought that this would take away from what was a solemn occasion yesterday on Armistice Day, and today, of course, which is Remembrance Sunday. But I thought that was the right thing to do, and I had rather hoped the police on those grounds, would actually say, look, not on this day of days, but by all means march in 2 days' time or 3 days' time if you wish, and you're at liberty to do so. Others I know around Europe have taken a different view from us in this regard, and many of them have banned all marches outright, which I'm not asking for. I never have done. So it was up to the police. I hope that they will respect this.
Your colleague Suella Braverman's been criticised for saying that the police play favourites. She's referencing during COVID, lockdown objectors were given no quarter by the police, which we remember. Some police officers kneeled in favour of Black Lives Matter, and yet this is the stance they've taken on these pro-Palestinian, or some say anti-Israel marches. Are the Met Police playing favourites?
I know a lot of police in my constituency and elsewhere who genuinely work hard for everybody in the community and try and protect them all. So I don't think they play favourites over this sort of stuff at all. I think there is frustration that in the earlier marches that took place, when there were very much lots of very anti-Semitic and pro-Hamas placards, and there were yesterday, by the way. I know others who've seen the marches and said there were quite a lot of anti-Semitic posters, and there were elements of concern, fireworks, you said all that earlier on. So but the police dealt with both, I think, and they dealt with them, I hope and believe, evenly handed. And my view and concern is a march like that was always a problem in terms of provocation, and I know you should be free to march regardless of whether others dislike it, but I just thought on that day of days we should just postpone that sort of thing and just have time to contemplate and think about, as I say, those who never came back, having given up their lives for their country.
What do you make of the criticism of the Home Secretary from within the Conservative Party? Fraser Nelson wrote an interesting piece for The Telegraph on Friday where he said, are we witnessing the breakup of the Conservative Party? Are we, Sir Iain?
No. I mean, political parties in the UK are coalitions completely, obviously slightly different views, generally coalescing around the main principles about what they believe. The same goes for Labour. Look at how many Labour MPs have come out against their own leaders' refusal to call for an absolute ceasefire, but instead for humanitarian aid moments. And I think that is critical. First past the post means you have to arrive with a party ready to govern, whereas PR means you do all that after the election. So we've always been a coalition. I don't think it's a breakup. I think there will be criticisms and there'll be defenders. But I think the main thing is the government able to deliver a stable economy and a stable country? And I think that is the key issue that's going to be at the next election. But no, I don't think the Conservative Party is about to break up anytime soon.
But what's your analysis of Suella Braverman's handling of this whole situation? I mean, you've been in a leadership role. Some people, even Grant Shapps earlier today on the show, has talked about questioning some of the language she's used.
Well, I'm a great believer in Teddy Roosevelt's great view, which is you speak softly and carry a big stick. But I can understand Suella Braverman's frustrations because she was worried. I had conversations with her before. She was genuinely worried that the provocation of one march would lead to other incidents, and therefore there would be issues. And so I think to that degree, and by the way, the Prime Minister was very clearly of a very similar opinion. He said that he thought it was disrespectful and that maybe they should be postponed. And I thought that was pretty much the right decision to take. So I don't think that when you get down to essentials, there was any great difference between the two of them, or for that matter, in the party's general view.
Let's touch on the events currently underway in Gaza. When the Israelis talk about destroying Hamas, do you think that's operationally possible in the short term and indeed politically possible in the long term?
Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization that is dedicated to the eradication of Jews, but Jews in Palestine particularly. The chant from the river to the sea is not a nice, gentle chant. It is about eradicating Jews from Palestine. Hamas, Hezbollah, all these organizations are dedicated to that. One of the problems that we've got, and we all want to see the fighting stop, whether the Israelis are able to clear out Hamas, I suspect they will do a huge amount of damage to their ability to fight, having wrecked many of their command centers and also destroyed many of their tunnels. Whether every Hamas person will be eradicated is highly unlikely. But I think the key thing is that we don't see incidents like we saw at the beginning back in October, when Hamas was able at will to mercilessly kill, decapitate, burn Jewish people, Israelis, who were peacefully settled or partying. That must never happen again, and I think that is Israel's purpose. But whether they can absolutely eradicate Hamas, I don't believe so. But there will be many Middle Eastern states that will be very, very quietly behind closed doors, angry with the behavior of Hamas. And I think this may be the beginning of the end, hopefully, of the funding and support that takes place, particularly from Qatar.
But equally, there are going to be concerns, not least in the Western world, about proportionality and how Israel reacts to this without too many civilian casualties. We appreciate the argument about Hamas using people as human shields. But what does the Western world need to do to ensure that there isn't too much bloodshed, Sir Iain?
Well, keep on asking the Israelis to make sure that they do absolutely everything to avoid civilian casualties, even altering their targeting if they have any doubts at all. And I believe, by the way, that they are trying to do that. I really don't believe that they in any way wish to target civilians. The brutality of war is what it is, and it is a terrible thing. Every time you start fighting in built-up areas, you will always have civilian casualties. I would love, like anybody else, to see an ability to have a ceasefire. But the problem, of course, is that how do you have a ceasefire with an organization that refuses to accept to lay down its arms or stop killing the other side? That is Hamas. Hamas has said they would not abide by a ceasefire. So that would mean the Israelis putting down their weapons only to find they were then being shot at and more atrocities take place. So the key problem is it's a two-way process. To have a ceasefire, you must have both parties willing to stand by it. Okay. I think the best thing we can do at the moment is have humanitarian pauses and get that aid in, which is absolutely critical.
Sir Iain Duncan Smith, I know you have to now go to commemorations at your local cenotaph in Chingford, so thank you very much for joining me this morning.